All right, so that's recording on the road, even though I'm hoping I do not need the audio, but I'm paranoid. And going. All right, folks, how y'all doing? Episode 36, 40 Watt Podcast. Hope y'all are doing wonderfully. Hope, it's all sunshines and rainbows and rock music wherever you are. Take care of our housekeeping before we get rolling in the episode. Y'all remember to go over to 40wattpodcast.com. There you can find all of our links, show notes, if you don't see them in the episode description below or in the episode description in your podcast player. Make sure that you go over to our Linktree account, linktr.ee/40watt podcast. You can find all the links to our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find our Discord server over there that's starting to grow. We're getting some folks over there talking about guitars, and beer is pretty much all we talk about. Lots of guitar and beer. You'll find links to my Reverb affiliate link. So if you use the Reverb affiliate link, either to sign up for Reverb or to buy things, I get a little kickback. It costs you nothing. It helps keep this show going and pay things like hosting fees and streaming software. And Mike and I were just talking about how this stuff costs are starting to creep up on me a little bit getting this going. But so also, if you want to support the show, there are a couple of other ways you can do it. One free, one not so free. We'll start with the not so free. You can go over to Patreon, patreon.com/40watt podcast, where for $3 a month, you can help make this show possible. For $5 a month, you can help make this show possible, and you will get extra content every week. You'll get an extra podcast episode right to your podcast player where you can get extra content with my guests. You can get sometimes surprise episodes with other guests, or you may just get me talking about some of my favorite albums and artists. Haven't done that one yet, but it's going to happen eventually. But if, say, you don't have a ton of money, and $5 a month, not a ton of money, one less cup of coffee a month. Depending on who you are, according to Josh Scott, cups of coffee are like $35 if you watch one of his most recent episodes. You can also share this episode with a friend of yours. That's a free way you can help keep this podcast going. Share the podcast with someone you think is into guitar, into these kinds of interviews and conversations that I have with makers. I don't like to call them interviews anymore. They're really just conversations. We're just talking. So share episode, rate, review, like, thumbs up if you're on YouTube for the algorithm. I hate this phrase, but, smash that like button. I felt dirty saying it. It's such a terrible phrase. But do all the things. Find us on all the social media. Support us on Patreon if you're able and would like to. Share us if you can't. But beyond that, we're going to get rolling into today's episode. Today, I've got Mike from Native Audio on the podcast, who I was lucky enough to hang out with and talk at Summer NAMM, back before the world started to go to hell again. And I don't want to walk outside. But Mike, how you doing, sir?
Dude, I am doing well, doing very well. It was a good time. You guys came over by the booth, and I feel like we just had an automatic connection.
Yeah, dude.
First time actually meeting you, and I felt like we just kept on. We just nonstop chatting and nonstop talking about gear. So. I think we've stayed connected since then, and you asked me to come on the show, and I was like more than pumped to be able to bounce on this.
Yeah, I knew I had to get you on the show when we got to talking, and it was you and Micah were there, and
yep,
we Mike and I geeked out about old PV gear, and
he's a gear nerd.
Yes, and obscure gear too, which is, when you grow up in Mississippi, my listeners heard me talk about it. There's some obscure gear around Mississippi because people, played what they could afford to buy, which wasn't, there weren't a lot of Marshall amps bouncing around Mississippi. Lots of Fender and PV. or
Yeah.
PV, as somebody called it, Mississippi Marshalls.
I like that. Mississippi Marshalls.
Yeah. But so we met at NAMM, and
Yes.
like, it was a little slow. It's fine. I think by the time I came over, it was late in the day on Thursday. I finally got over to your booth, and you weren't like busy talking to someone. You were busy talking like all day Thursday. It felt like.
Yeah, you say it wasn't busy, but I was pretty busy. Me and Mike and Micah. Yeah, me and Micah. It literally went nonstop. But yeah, you were saying that you were able to make it this way.
Yeah, so you guys were like super busy every time I walked by, and shout out to one of my Patreon supporters, David. He was like, "No, you got to go talk to Mike at Native Audio." I was like, "I know, I'm going to, I promise." But then when I finally got over there, it was like at the end of the day. I guess everybody was tired because I promise I sat there and played your pedals for like 40 minutes. Like we talked and played pedals and talked guitars.
Yes.
So
that was.
No, it was rad. So what I want to know, and I want to get into this, and how'd you get into this? Like, how'd you get into guitar? How did that transition to pedal making? Like, how'd that all happen?
Yeah. Do you want me to give you like a rundown?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how I got into I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to guitars. I didn't get started playing until I think junior year of high school, and what ended up actually getting me into guitar was actually Guitar Hero. I was a big gamer back in the day, and Guitar Hero is one of those games that I ended up coming across, and I really nerded out about it, and it got to the point where I'm like, you know what, I want to play what these guys are playing, like the real thing. And so I ended up going through this whole thing, started playing guitar, been playing guitar since, but also at the same time too, I've kind of been a nerd at heart. I was one of those kids where like I would always be breaking down things and trying to put them back together. I had weird pulley systems in my bedroom, in middle school, just doing weird kind of like, experimental stuff. And but then it came game time, and I was in college, and I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. And my parents actually ended up signing me up for engineering because they were like, I heard engineers make a lot of money, and so I was like, okay, that sounds cool, whatever. Sure. But as the more that I got into the school, I was like, holy crap, this is actually stuff I really like. And, while I was doing my undergrad, I was also doing guitar lessons during the winter time. And I had a guitar teacher, a really awesome guy. And we were conversing, and he was like, so what are you going to school for? And I'm like, well, I actually kind of want to try to learn how to build those. And I put him down on the floor. He had like an effects processor. And I was like, I want to try to build those, or do something with guitar and like amps or something, And then while I was in college, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start messing around with these. So I started buying broken pedals and started repairing them. And then I went to kind of trying to work on my own designs, trying to tweak and mod. And I came out, one of the first ones that I kind of ended up coming up with was like the Mint Drive, and it was a cool little pedal. It took me like 5 hours to build one unit, and I built up a couple units. And at that time, I was starting to hit different shows around the Dayton area, and I started kind of really networking and kind of connecting with musicians in the area. And actually, a couple of them ended up buying the Mint Drive. And I was making like a buffer and some other utility type of pedals at that time too that I was trying to sell them. And I was doing all the powder coating and all the printing in-house. And it was just taking really, really ridiculous amount of time. Like to powder coat 3 enclosures, like I swear it took me like almost 3 hours or something.
Go.
But it was I don't know, just trying to figure out things, and 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 then fast forward even more, I ended up establishing Red House Electronics, which was back in 2015. Yeah, 2015, near the end of it was October 2015. I started had Red House Electronics, and at the time too, I ended up getting, this is about 2016. I joined a band, and it was kind of like a country style type of band, like neo country or something, and really fun band. But they had a lot of tremolo. They were like tremolo heavy, and so
I already know I like them.
Yes, yes, and they were pretty killer, and they were tremolo heavy. And at the time, I only had I had like a 67 reverb, really nice, awesome amp. It was a Twin Reverb, really thick amp. Tremolo sounded sweet, but trying to keep in sync with a drummer was miserable, because I just like, oh crap, I thought I was on 3, but now I got to turn it to 4, and now I'm a little bit less. And just trying to match that was just a pain. And about that time too, I was already kind of doing some programming in my undergrad studies, and ended up kind of being able to kind of take that coding and apply it to pedals. And I came up with the Heat Wave, which is now the Rising Sun. It's a tap tremolo. And the rest is history from there. And later on, I ended up being Red House Electronics, but then the brand itself started kind of developing a little bit more into kind of incorporating my Native American heritage. And at that point, I was like, I had a couple of products underneath the line, and I was like, you know what, this just seems right. And so I think 2018 or 2019, I did the change from Red House to Native Audio, and that's when it kind of started turning up a little bit, like the pedal game.
Yeah. No, and so now you've got a line. I think you've got 5 pedals in your line now. So that's gone from, needing to make a tremolo just because you needed to be able to tap into tremolo. Yeah. I love that you were like, I'm just going to make one. Like, there are tons of people making one. Well, not tons, but there's a few people out there making it.
No. So back in 2015, when I started trying to think about the concept, they're literally like the market was empty with tap tremolos. I think at the time there was Seymour Duncan had a tap tremolo.
Yep.
And then I think Cusack had the Tap-A-Whirl. But honestly, like there really wasn't a lot of tap tremolos out in the market at the time.
I'm trying to think. 2015 did, and maybe JHS had theirs out by then.
No, they didn't.
Did they not? Okay.
No.
I can't remember.
I think they released theirs around 2017 or something.
Oh, wow.
2018, So, So, literally, there wasn't too much. I think Empress had one as well. But, I mean, a lot of these pedals are, they're kind of a little bit above my price range.
They're expensive.
As a college student goes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I was in college, we won't talk about the pedals I had in college. They weren't great. They weren't amazing. At least the first attempt at college, I took two solid attempts. Second one stuck, but
2 rounds have different pedals.
It's got to happen. But and as a tremolo junkie, and someone, I named this podcast because I love the Super Reverb so much, and I love the tremolo on the Super Reverb, and where I'm not as concerned about getting it in sync. I just want it kind of close, so the tap doesn't get me as much. I mean, it's nice when you need it. You want it to be there. But my issue with amp tremolo has always been, at least Fender tremolo, it does not get slow enough.
Yeah. Yep.
On one, it's too fast. It's just
It's like, can I bring it down a little slower?
Yeah, I want it to sort of like almost not be there. It's just kind of pushing the sound a little. So I've always been a pedal tremolo guy. In fact, I had on my pedal board for the longest time, I had the Voodoo Lab, the 4-knob tremolo that they make.
Yeah.
I still love that pedal. I sold it a while back, but I shouldn't have.
I feel like that's with the Voodoo Lab stuff. Like I've had a couple of Voodoo Lab things, and which I've sold, and then I'm like, crap, I shouldn't have sold that. I had the Micro Vibe. Loved the Micro Vibe.
It's such a great underrated vibe pedal. I've still got,
it really
because I bought it again. It at first, my first one, I didn't sell it. It got stolen, but I had a Sparkle Drive. It's still my favorite tube screamer. And it's because it's got that clean control, which I barely used. Barely. Like, it's like at 1. Like, that's how much of the clean signal I want in there, but I want a little. So, they're underrated. So you got the Rising Sun tremolo. But I'll be honest, like, sat down and I played your pedals, but your delay and reverb pedals are absolutely ridiculous. So it's the Wilderness delay and the Ghost Ridge multi reverb.
Yep.
And I'm going to click over and look at it just because.
Oh, of course.
The Ghost the multi reverb, it's wild because it's got presets. First of all, it's a single pedal enclosure that has presets.
Yeah.
And it's got 2 knobs. It's so dead simple. I freaking love it.
Doesn't get any easier.
No, and it sounds fantastic. I sat and just played with that for like 10 minutes, just getting that and the delay, like warping into all sorts of craziness. And I don't know, it really showed me what can be done in a single pedal enclosure that I don't think a lot of pedal makers are doing. But also, this is mildly controversial. I'm not going to be super controversial, but you're one of the few pedal makers that went into this with an engineering background. Like, not a lot of pedal makers out there that can say, "Oh, I went to school for engineering." Like, this is what I went to school for.
Well, and with the Ghost Ridge, the Ghost Ridge. Was one of those pedals that was built kind of out of, similar to the Rising Sun, it was built out of necessity. Like, at the time I needed a reverb, but also I wanted presets because I literally had 2 settings, right?
Right.
I had a Nunabear wet reverb.
Mm-hmm.
Love that reverb. Reverb is freaking killer. It has so much range on it. But I had settings like one was like this way, where the 2, like tone, I didn't really care. Because I couldn't really notice too much of the tone, but with the mix and depth, I had it like this, and then I had another setting that was like this. So literally, I had 2 settings, right?
Right.
And play a certain song, like, oh crap, this is setting number 2. Bend down, and or this is setting number 1.
Yeah.
And then at the time. I started kind of looking at other pedals in the market to use myself. And I just couldn't find anything that had presets, but then also had a decent reverb offering, but then also had the control. And that was one of those things I was like, holy crap, maybe I should try to work at coming out with something a little bit simpler. And and there comes the Ghost Ridge.
And even in today, like I've got several reverb pedals. I've had several over the years too. I've had the Flint, which is tremolo and reverb. I've played the Blue Sky. I've had a Big Sky. I've got the Night Sky. So let's cover all the Strymon bases, all you Strymon fans, before you think I'm dismissing them. I've covered all those bases. Yeah. Then I've also, I've got all the Helix stuff. I've had Wampler reverbs, which I've got a Wampler reverb right now that I really, really like, but it's because I like it for basic reverb. Like, I don't want to do anything crazy. Just want this basic reverb. Just simple. Just give me and it's got a good plate, which is sometimes hard to find. Sometimes people overdo the plate thing. And anyway, I'm going to digress. It's just going to happen.
I'm not hurt at all.
Yeah. But with yours, so you get presets, you get all the different algorithms. You've got multiple types of reverb in there. It's a simple format in a single pedal enclosure.
Yeah.
Nobody else ticks all of those boxes. Everybody else is either it's a simple reverb, but there's no presets. It's a super complex with multi-algorithm and presets, but it is not simple, and it's a bigger pedal. And some, with the Helix stuff, I got a deep dive. I don't want to dive menus. Even the Helix isn't even that bad. I don't want to dive into menus sometimes. I just want a couple of knobs.
Of course.
And like I have the HX Stomp on my main pedal board, and I have 2 reverbs set up, and literally there's never a time I don't have reverb on. even if my amp has reverb, I have a reverb on the HX Stomp. And I think that's the growing up with Fender amps, just like I've always had that sound. And so that I have a button that all it does is switch between the 2 reverbs. That's all that one button on my Stomp does. Yes. There's just natural, and then there's a lot of reverb. There's a little reverb and a lot.
Literally the same exact setup I was doing. And, you know, the crazy thing about it is when we start getting into like designing pedals, and exactly what you said, you can make it stupid simple, or you can make it as complex as you want. And I think where, designing, where a lot of designers and manufacturers get a little mixed up is that these pedals are being played by musicians.
Yeah.
And when you're at a show, you don't have that time. And of course there's, the bedroom players, the studio players, where they have the time to be able to adjust those. But for the more practical musician that's gigging, that's going to shows, and they're playing this song, they have these settings, and they got to go to the next song and adjust the settings. You don't have that time, right? Mm-mm. And so where a lot of the native audio designs really strive is to be able to answer that practical musician, the guy that just needs something switched really quick and adjusted really quick. But yeah, offers a wide range of different types of sounds.
So I used to play with a guy who's actually been on the podcast, Walt Busby. He's a guitar player, keys player, incredible musician, just incredibly nice guy. But I used to watch him between songs, like frantically change all the settings on like 4 or 5 different pedals per song. It's like he knew, he even would write it in the set list. He's like, all right, between these 2 songs, you have no time to do anything else because all of your settings on your pedals are different. Good for what you were just doing. Like, some songs it was maybe 1 or 2 pedals, but there were like a couple of times a night where he'd be like, I have to literally change everything. So I was like, that just
sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a complete nightmare. And whereas I am a totally different player, I've mentioned it a bunch on this podcast that I need a couple of drives. I need tremolo, and or univibe. And really, that's the majority of the sound I use. I like having a wah pedal because occasionally I like to get my wah on.
I love the wah. Yes. It's my fave.
That's the blues. That's the blues in me. I have to have a wah pedal, but it is always off board. It's not on my pedal board anymore. But I'd play sets with bands, cover bands. Like I'd be in the cover bands, or I was in these function bands, or even in like original bands.
Yeah.
I didn't know one night to another whether I'd use tremolo on this section of a song or not. Sometimes it'd be tremolo on that section. Sometimes it might not be. So I play very much as the moment takes me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I need everything on top. Like, let me be able to change things as I go, because I don't know where I'm going to want to be in this moment, in this song, on this given night. That's why I tried to do the pedal board where like everything is preset. Like I had an ES8 and I had like all the big box pedals, and like it is like I spent more time programming than I did playing guitar, and it's just not for me. And so that's why I like yours. Yours has so much function and so much simplicity. And I haven't even talked about the fact that on your tremolo and your phaser and your delay, the external jack, where like you can pair them, where they can share settings. Nobody else is doing that.
It's a fun feature.
Yeah,
so you can just tap one and kind of adjust the other. So that's pretty fun in itself.
Yeah. So let's talk about those a little bit. Explain how that feature works for those of you that haven't seen Native Audio pedals. First of all, the website is linked down in the description below, or on our website in the show notes. Go check that out. You can check out the pictures. And there is, on the right side of the pedals, there is a jack that's just marked EXT. And so they can be linked. And then I'm going to let Mike explain it to me because...
Oh, yeah. No, so there's basically there's a input that has EXT, and that EXT does exactly what the control switch does on the unit itself. And there's the Wilderness, Rising Sun, and Midnight, which is delay, tremolo, and phaser. They each have two modes. One's tap and the other's ramp. Tap is basically allows you to get divisions. You can also fine tune the rates by being able to dial them in. And then ramp mode allows you to choose a slow speed, fast speed, and then bounce between the two speeds, which is really fun. And what's really cool though about the pedals is that we call it control switch, because in tap mode, it's your tap switch. In ramp mode, it's the switch you use to be able to ramp. So it's just the control switch, but that EXT is an external control switch, which is really cool because when you start getting into multiple effects, you can actually start chaining them together. And when you can tap one pedal while it syncs all the other ones, or if you want to ramp, you can hold that and it'll ramp all the other ones. Starts getting into some weird territory.
Yeah, no, that's so wild. And before everybody comes after me in comments and on social media that you can do that with MIDI. Yeah, you can do it with MIDI, but who wants to program MIDI? Like, I hate programming MIDI. I don't want to do it. So I love the simplicity of them.
Yes.
And then, of course, now you have your overdrive. You're going to have to pronounce it for me so I don't butcher it.
Yeah, that's the Kiayo.
Kiayo. All right.
Yeah,
so,
Kiayo.
3-knob, super simple, straightforward overdrive. I think we talked about that. It's like everyone's got to have a 3-knob overdrive. You got to have one. So.
Right. And the Kiayo, man. I think we were actually surprised at the response that the Kiayo ended up getting on the release, and I guess the response that it continually gets. Because there is, like you were saying, a lot of 3-knob overdrives out there. And a few that really make an impact, because I feel like a lot of musicians change overdrives more than they do socks,
Yes.
I know I do. We've been pleasantly surprised though, and get tons of emails and just tons of messages, people sharing stuff on social media of the Kiayo. The funny ones is like, I just needed an overdrive and I was not expecting this one to take me like that, but it did, so we've been getting pretty good response with the Kiayo overdrive.
Yeah. And I think listeners ought to go check it out. When I say 3-knob overdrive, don't instantly assume I'm talking about a tube screamer. There are a whole lot of other 3-knob overdrives that are not tube screamers out there. And there are tons of great ones out there. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, playing it was absolutely a blast. And I think you've really put together a super cohesive line of pedals that are, unless you're using the external jack, they're all top mount jacks. They're a small form factor. Like you brought the pedal board with all your pedals on it. I was like, okay, that's like every gig. Like I don't need anything. Well, I need a wah pedal. You gonna make a wah pedal? Is that what we're gonna do?
Where's the
next?
wah pedal going?
Yeah. Where's your wah pedal, Mike?
Yeah. That's
I've been challenging pedal makers to do this. I did it on. What's that?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
On actually tagged Brian Wampler in this week. There is one company that makes one. So before I say that, I do know that one exists. Uno. I want a pedal that essentially does that mids boost that a wah pedal does, but is just a plain old pedal that you can have an expression pedal plug into it to create a wah pedal.
Yeah, like the cocked wah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, JHS did the haunted mids or haunting mids pedal a while back, and I think that started as a joke, but then it became a real thing. And I was like, well, now that pedal needs an expression jack because it's a wah pedal, but they don't put one on it. Yeah. There's your wah pedal.
I do enjoy the kind of like the cocked wah. That's kind of how I kind of play mine a little bit too. It kind of adds like a little slight filtering. If I have, say, some reverb running, some delay running with an overdrive, it's kind of nice to kind of do like a nice little sweep from kind of like dark to light and just kind of bring it back and just kind of let the echoes of the delay kind of be shaped with that wah. It's a fun thing.
I think that adds a lot of movement to sections of songs, especially sections of song where chords are held for long periods of time. Say you're hitting one chord for a good solid 4 bars. If you want to add just a little bit of movement to it, you get that filter sweep going on, and it propels the song forward. And I can have to plug in my wah in when we get done here.
What wah are you using?
Right now, I've got the Wilson wah, which is by Kevin Wilson, Wilson Effects.
It's over in Indiana.
Yep, and it's
cool neighbor.
I'm a big fan of Kevin's pedals. I've had his Haze Vibe, which is a great pedal, which he recently revamped. I think he just did. I think it's purely cosmetic. I don't think he changed the circuit. But he does a wah that has a bunch of dip switches in it. It's the Wilson Wah V2, and he's got a bunch of different voicings that you can. So I took it. I bought it after I sold off my full tone Clyde that I used for a few years, and then I got the Wilson.
Okay.
And I spent like 2 hours flipping dip switches inside that pedal
until fine tuning.
Exactly. Found the setting I loved, and I've not opened it again. It's like, dude, that's it.
That's killer, man.
Yeah.
I know Wilson. He does. So my buddy had one of the, I think it was a Dunlop one of the Dunlop mini wahs that he modded to be like a WH10 wah.
Yep.
So he does a lot of some WH10 stuff, and that's actually one of my favorite. I have two WH10s because I found one. This is back in the day. This is like 2015, 16. I found one online. I was like, dude, that's sick. That's exactly what I want. And it was in Germany, so I had to pay a freaking $1.50 for it.
Yeah.
But I got it. It was sick. And then I found another one online on eBay that was like for $80. And I ended up swooping that up too, because I was like, that's such a good deal. I have one of these, but I can have one at the house, and then I can have one that I travel with, right?
There you go.
But it has a thick sweep. I love the sweep. It's not really dramatic, but it also stays on the lower end of the frequency, which I love.
That's what I love too. I don't want it toe down. Like at toe down, I want to just start to get into that treble. That's like, and
know
just
exactly what you're talking about.
Just barely touch it. I want that deep guttural, like real, just a meaty wah sound. It's like,
meaty, and that's what I ended up using. But then it just started getting a little sketchy because it's plastic, right?
Right.
The housing on the WH10. So I ended up, what did I do? I got the Dunlop mini wah, and I love that. There's a million of them out on the market. So if this one breaks, it's not hard to go to another one, but there's a toggle switch in there, or not a toggle, but just like a slide switch. And there's like HML or something, but I switch it to the L, which is like, I think it emphasizes the lower frequencies. And dude, it sounds killer.
Yeah.
It sounds killer, and it does exactly what you're talking about.
I've been impressed by those mini wahs. Like, I thought it'd be awkward to play because it's so small. Didn't even notice it. Barely noticed that it was smaller.
No, you don't. And that's exactly what I went through.
I think, if I remember, I think I saw on Reverb, because I have a watch list for Wilson Effects on Reverb. I think I saw that he's making a mini wah as a standard thing now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Like using the housing of the mini wah?
That's a good question. I don't know. I can't tell you for certain.
Yeah, I know he was doing some stuff where he was like putting his own circuit in. But he does a really good job though at being able to just come up with pedals that actually sound really good, you know?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. There's 5 of them on Reverb right now. Yeah. I don't know. My guess is he's got to be just taking the housing, right? He's got to be. I don't know. I can't.
Probably gotten it and then just putting his own guts into the pedal.
Yeah, that's got to be exactly what he's doing, because he's got several different versions of it too. Like there's like, yeah, I've refrained from buying because I'm trying to buy less. Like right now, I'm in hardcore buy less stuff.
What's the last pedal you bought?
Oh, what is the last? Oh, I bought the big ear Beavis and Burkhead pedal. Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
That Grant did.
I've seen that. Yeah, that looked pretty sweet.
Grant made one for those of you who don't know. Grant Wilson over at Wilson again over at Big Ear Pedals. While we were in Nashville for Summer NAMM, Ryan Burke went over and built a pedal with Grant. And there's a video. You can go watch it on 60 Cycle Hum's YouTube channel. And then Grant built 10 of them, and they're all hand-painted by Karen. And they sold those 10 with all of the proceeds going to a charity that's helping support musicians that were out of work during COVID to try to help make ends meet. So I was like, I can do that. That's totally, that's a thing I'll throw my money at. It's essentially started life as a tube screamer circuit, and Grant says it is not that anymore. It's something totally different. We'll find out. It's not actually even here yet, so it should be here any day. But that's the most recent pedal I bought.
Dude, that's killer, man.
Yeah, and that was I didn't intend to buy a pedal, but charity got me. If you want me to buy a pedal, sucker me in with charity.
It's gonna be you're like, okay, I'm not gonna buy anymore. I bought too much gear, and as I look, I swear I count like 15 guitars or something in the back.
Yeah, don't look behind me. Do not look behind me.
Your head's covering about like 6 of them.
Yeah, those are. This one over here is a 10 guitar stand.
Okay.
And I think I've got 7 on this one.
So 17, 19 guitars back there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then that's not. I've got one right here. So I've got my Novo is over here.
Okay.
But.
Oh my god!
It's an addiction, man. You remember? Yeah. I think you underestimated when we were talking at NAMM, and I told you, I've got a lot of guitars. There's a lot of stuff.
This is half my collection right here.
No, and I played the Fender there, Sweet Guitar. I played that at Summer NAMM.
So this one's actually this is the bass.
Oh,
so
I couldn't see it.
So you're not wrong. I have a Fender Duosonic.
Yeah.
It's the black one, which
that's right.
feels phenomenal. But this is actually the Fender Mustang bass. Those
are super cool. I don't play enough bass to justify more than these two. These are my only basses. I've had the P bass here. This is a Highway 1 P bass. I bought that brand new in 2005.
Oh dang!
Yeah, so it's I say brand new. It was at a Guitar Center, and they were trying to liquidate them because I think that's the year that Fender changed some things about them. And so they were trying to liquidate the old stock to get the newer versions of the Highway 1s in. It's also when they changed the headstocks on all the Strats to be the bigger headstock instead of the smaller one, which I hate. Give me the 60s headstock. Don't give me the 70s. And they were closing it. I think I bought it for $400, and I needed a bass. I didn't have one at the time. No, it still got original electronics. I added the chrome covers to it. And the other bass came about, listeners, I'm sorry if you've already heard this story. So I had these are those Facebook stories, right? These are those crazy deal stories. I went out, I was looking for a Fender Rumble bass amp, like little tiny bass amp, because I had sold my bass amp when I moved because it was big and it was just whatever. And I wasn't playing a ton of bass. Well, I was playing all these show choirs and musicals, and I was like, oh, I could get twice as many gigs if I was playing bass too, because everybody's telling me they need a bass player too. And I'm like, okay, I've already got a bass. I'll go buy a little tiny bass amp because we're playing these tiny little shows that don't have to be real loud. was like, awesome. So I started looking for like a Fender Rumble 25 or 40. I found a 200 on Facebook. And, but here's the deal. It was a Fender Rumble 200, and that bass, which is a 1997 American Deluxe jazz bass. And he wanted $700 for both of them together. And this is in like 2016, 2017. And I was like, well, I don't really have $700 right now. So I messaged him. I was like, you want trades, anything like that? He said, nope, no trades, just looking to sell. I was like, well, crap, I'm going to miss this deal because I just did not have $700. I just couldn't make it appear out of nowhere. So about a week later, I'm looking on Facebook and it's still available. And I was like, I messaged him. I said, dude, this still here? He said, yep. He said, I've had some lowballers and tire kickers. I said, give me an hour. And so I started like, what do I have that I could sell pretty quickly? And what I had was a hunting rifle. Like I had this rifle. I have never been deer hunting a day in my life, but I had a deer hunting rifle. Right. Why? Because Mississippi. That's my only excuse. So you live in Ohio. You get it. Deer hunting's a major thing in Ohio.
Brother, Dad, they can't wait for hunting season.
But it just wasn't my thing. I like fishing. I love fishing. Yeah. Hunting's not my thing. So I was like, I bet I could sell that rifle. I called a few friends of mine who would know people, and sure enough, within a couple of hours, I found somebody interested in that rifle, struck up a deal, sold the rifle, bought the bass and that amp for $700. Yeah. As I'm leaving his house, he's like, oh, don't forget this. He hands me an 8-space SKB case, rack case, with a power conditioner, a tuner, a compressor, and the amp stand that the amp was on. Crap. I was like, are you sure? He said, yep.
Yeah. He's like, take the house too. I don't need it.
You need a truck here. Yeah, you can just haul it away in my truck. It's like,
holy crap, that's a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah. So I've sold the amp, kept the bass. Okay. You know what I mean? And so those are my two basses. And as much as I would love one of those shorter scale Mustang basses, because I think they're so cool, I can't justify it, and I can't talk myself into selling one of these.
Yeah, so, it's I think I paid $500 for that one, I think, or $450, one of the two.
Oh, so that means in 2021 money it'd be like $900?
Nah, probably something like that. Yeah, I got that one in 2017, I think it was. And that one freaking plays like butter. And it was one of those ones where, like, I actually got that one at Sam Ash. I walked in Sam Ash, and it's like one of those things where, you just kind of like pick up anything. Yeah. And I was just like, my buddy was doing something. I just picked this up, and I'm like, doop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a bass too. This feels good. And sure enough, I brought it home that day. Oh, yep. They're so cool, and they sound so cool. But I don't play enough bass to justify 3 basses. That's one more bass that I think I need too. Yeah, I think 2 is one more than I need. Yes. And then I got the there's a Taylor Acoustic. Oh yeah. In the back. I enjoy it. Yeah, right. Some of these behind me that you can't really see because the microphone's in the way. Yeah. We should not even really count them because they are like as cheap as they get cheap acoustics. A couple of them are, really? And like real beat up, and they're on racks, but they'd be just as good as firewood. I keep them because I can't burn a guitar, but it just is what it is. They're not great. I've accumulated stuff over. I started like you did. I was late in life. I started playing guitar when I was 18. Okay. Yeah. We're talking 1999 though for me. So I've been playing and collecting gear for 22 years now, which hurts me to say, but dude, that's killer though. It's cool that you stuck with it, Oh yeah. What are you, guitar amp guy? Like, I know you're a guitar guy because you got 5,000 guitars. What's your amp collection? Amp collection has picked up steam the last couple of years because I got into a position where
I made some good deals and bought some stuff when it was less and sold it when it was high. And so neither here nor there. Is just, I got lucky on a lot of stuff. So I've ended up with a couple of like what I call end game amplifiers. So I've got a 1970 Super Reverb. Now that's not my end game amplifier, and I've had that amp since 2006, something like that. Okay. And for a long time, it was my only amp. Like, that was it. Like, it has never, knocking on everything, it has never gone down on me. Ever.
That's not bad.
Not at all for at when I bought it, a 30-something-year-old amp, now it's 50 years old at this point. So, but over the years of buying, selling, flipping, and then some really good deals, I have ended up with, I have one of the import AC30s that's a great amp, but if I could find somebody that wanted to buy it tomorrow, I'd probably sell it. It's not that big a deal. But I've got a divided by 13 AMW 39, which I bought this year, which is a Marshall style amplifier. Actually, I traded for, which is another crazy deal because I traded an amp that should not be worth what that amp is for it. Oh, really? That was the culmination of like a 5-year long play flip deal. It's like where you have one thing that you flip for one thing that you flip for one thing that
snowballs into a big awesome deal.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine after I made that deal, they said, you really need to write the musical equipment equivalent of that book where the guy starts with a paperclip and he ends up trading for a house. You ever read that book?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the other is I have a Two-Rock traditional clean, and that's my that amp is that is the most ridiculous clean just pure guitar amp I've ever played in my life.
Okay.
I thought it was all hype. I bought it on a pretty good deal, one that I thought I could flip if I needed to, if I really needed to get out of it and didn't like it.
Right.
I did not expect to like it as much as I do.
Is it a pretty good platform for like dirt and all that?
It's the perfect platform. It's the first amp that I've ever thought, if with this amp I could use amp in a box pedals and it would be good. Yeah. Like I don't want a Marshall in a box pedal to run through my Fender Super Reverb. I want to sound like a Super Reverb. Yeah. It's 100 watts. You can drop it down to 50, but why? Just run it.
But why?
Yeah. So it does it. And to be honest, my other amps don't really get played much. Okay. It's the only one that gets played now.
Right.
I'm a big believer. They're expensive. I get that. They're bougie. Everybody can call me a blues lawyer all they want because I've got it, but that amp is absolutely killer. It leaves the house. I gig it. Like, I'm not afraid to take it out and play it on gigs. It's not something that just sits around. Yeah. I don't buy anything to just sit here. If I own it, it's got the potential. It's going to get gigged because they're tools to me. I don't think I own, with the exception of the guitar I traded for. I traded a guitar this week. I traded another guitar for it. With the exception of that guitar, I don't have a single guitar here that I haven't played on a gig. Yeah. So that's just how I feel about it.
Well, that's good. I definitely, it's one of those things where having I don't know, it's one thing to have like, I have a couple friends that like they have their like ridiculously expensive guitars that they either like won or that was handed down. It's like, in one aspect I kind of get it, but then in another, like it's like, if you bought something that much, why don't you use it?
Yeah. Like I don't. So it drives me crazy. I don't want. One, I'm not going to spend money on something just because it's expensive. Yeah. That's the way I was with the Two-Rock. Like it was expensive. But here in Mississippi, there's no Two-Rock dealers. I can't go play one, right? So I took a gamble. I had the money from selling some stuff, And I was like, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to try it. If I don't like it, I'll sell it. It's not a big deal. You know, it's a lot of money to hang up in an amp, but same thing with guitars. I've talked about it on the podcast. I own a Novo, and that Novo is the greatest guitar I've ever played. And I've played some amazing guitars. Yeah. I played a lot of amazing guitars while we were in Nashville, and I would still take my Novo.
You have 19 of them behind you.
yeah. And
and I'll still pick the Nova.
I told, I have gone and gigged with my Novo, and I always take a second guitar, and I almost always play the second guitar at some point. With a Novo and an Epiphone. Like, that was, and it's
what a collection.
Yeah, I don't care. It's, if it plays good and it sounds good, it is good. Yeah. So, having said that, I do have too many guitars. I've been dealing with that in my head a little bit. Like, it's like, why? I'm not gigging as much as I used to.
Right.
I'm not playing any session work. I haven't done any session work. I haven't done a lot of session work just in general, but I definitely haven't done a lot in a while.
Yeah.
So at some point I'm going to have a reckoning with myself. Yeah. And be like, all right, it's time to trim it down.
Start kicking them out of the house.
Yeah. I get sentimentally attached to junk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a bad way to be.
Yeah, that's I only have a couple electrics, and the last electric that I bought was the Duosonic you played over at NAMM, and I got that back in 2016, and that's the last guitar that I've actually bought, and I'm kind of weird. And before that was I had a white American Strat that I got before that, and that was back in 2012. So like 5 years and then 4 years. And then before that one was like 4 years before that. So like I usually have about 4 to 5 years before I get a guitar.
See, you're doing well. Don't do this. Don't do this.
No.
This is a bad look. This is not good.
Well, so here's the thing though, where I lack in guitars, I make up in amps.
Oh, really?
Because I play few amps. Well, I mean, I play few guitars because like I feel like I'm like cheating on one guitar if I buy another one, and I'm like, but I want to give all my love to that guitar,
Yeah.
And so so I currently literally for the last 4 years, 5 years, I've played that Duosonic heavily. Where like the American Strat, I've touched that a little bit here and there, but I play on the amps, and my current collection, like I have a 68 Princeton like drip edge. Which actually my grandpa. A funny story with that one was that was actually my grandpa's amp, and I'm in Montana one time. I'm hanging out at my other one of my other family members' house. And my grandpa goes, "Hey, you're doing like electric stuff, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, And he's like, "Well, I got this amp at my guitar or at my house. You should check it out." And my buddy gave it to me a while back, and I was like, "Okay, I'll go check it out." And so I go over there, dude. It was a freaking Princeton drip edge.
That's so cool.
I'm like, do you know what you have here? And he's like, "Oh no!" He's like, "I don't like it. It's not too loud. It's not loud enough." Because he likes my grandpa. He likes like more like twin style, like 212s. He likes some beef, and he's like, "This one's not loud enough." And plus, when you flip it on, it was smoking, and so you'd have to turn it off. So I had to swap out. I had to swap the ground plug on it, and then I changed the caps on it, because that's what was smoking.
I gotcha.
And just kind of jazz up some of the tubes too. But got it working, and it sounds heavenly now.
Dude, those are so cool.
Yeah, and that one, I was like, "Hey, I'll buy this one from you." And he's like, "Well, buy me a pack of strings, and then we'll call it good." So
like a grandpa does. You know what I mean?
Like a grandpa does, yes. And staying on the whole '68 wagon. I have a '68 drip edge Bassman, and which, dude, the Bassman sound is literally my favorite, like top sound ever.
Yeah.
And that's a Bassman head that I got here, and I got that for a ridiculous price. Just someone in the Dayton area that was selling on Craigslist. Picked that one up, and then I have a '67 Twin Reverb, which
Ooh.
I love the Fender stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I got that '67 Fender Reverb, and there's a whole story behind that reverb, but that reverb ended up getting me backstage to look at backstage, or what is it, stage side, whatever, of
Oh, yeah.
the Eagles.
What?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, you got to tell the story.
So that guitar, I came across that guitar on Craigslist. I contacted the person, their assistant answered, and I was like, hey, blah, 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 this amp. And so she's like, yeah, let me contact him, and, I'll let you know. So he calls me back, and he's like, are you interested in the '67 reverb? I was like, yeah. And he was up in the Akron area, and I'm down here in the Dayton. That's about a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm really interested in. And he's like, okay, yeah, let me, come up this way, you'll get it, or I'll sell you it, whatever. So I go up there, and I pull up. It's kind of like a interesting house that I pull up to. Really cool, We get in there. There's a piano over here, and then a winding staircase that goes up to his like office. We go into his office, and there it sits. He had some crazy Gretsch that he played. Anyways, we got in a conversation, and his friend was Joe Walsh's guitar tech. and the guy's like, yeah, I don't play instruments. Like, I don't play guitar. I don't play. I just love to collect.
Oh, wow.
So this guy didn't play, but he knew what was good.
Yeah.
And so he was always buying buy, trade, sell type of thing. And he was like, yeah, my buddy's the guitar tech for Joe Walsh. And, you kind of get one of those, like, all right, whatever type of thing. I'm sitting there playing on the amp, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, and fast forward, he's like, all right, it was really nice meeting you, Mike. If you want one of those tickets to the Eagles, man, let me know. I'll hook you up. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Fast forward about a week later, 2 weeks later, I find out Eagles are going to be in Indianapolis. And Indianapolis is about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive for me. So then I go, Craigslist guy. I'm like, hey, man, you still up for the Eagle things? They're actually supposed to be here in Indianapolis. He's like, let me call my buddy and let me see what I can get. He calls me back. Hey, Mike, they got 2 tickets for you waiting in will call. Just all you have to do is go there. Here's my buddy's number. He'll take you down. He'll show you Joe Walsh's setup. You won't be able to meet the band because they're over here in a different area, but you will be able to walk on stage, go whatever. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Anyways, I meet up with the tech. He takes me down. I had a stage pass. So literally, dude, I got to go up. He took me back. He showed me all the crap they had going on. And then he showed me Joe Walsh's area, which I think he had 28 guitars that night. And and he said, like, he plays almost every single, he's probably going to play 21 guitars tonight, and he has like 7 backups. But and then we also on tour we bring 300 guitars.
Oh my god!
300 guitars. Yeah, he said we literally have like a truck dedicated for his guitars.
So that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard.
It was really wild, and I ended up. So I got to see his setup. I got to see like the tech setup and everything, and kind of how he does, everything. And then he brought me outside, brought me through. They kind of have like a green room type of thing that they kind of like walk through to, out onto stage. And then I went on stage. This is literally like 15 minutes before the show starts. I'm like standing on stage. Everybody's like sitting in their seat, like, who's that down there?
Right.
You know? And so he actually went and he let me check out, like, I got to see Joel Walsh's pedal setup. And, you know, I got to go look. And he really didn't have too much craziness. I know he was using a DS1.
Oh, that's awesome.
DS1. Yeah, classic DS1. Gosh, that's been so wild, or so far back now. But he had a wah pedal, and then he was playing through a box amp. Man, I can't even remember what pedals he had. Yeah, I got to check out his set, and I got to go over and see all the other people's setups and everything, and it was a cool experience.
Yeah, no, that's super cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And you got a 67 Super Reverb out of it.
Yes, and a 67 Reverb out of it. And yeah, and then I got a couple other stuff. I got Marshall Head, and then this VHT amp, and then the 68 reissue that you guys played through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those reissues are pretty good. You know, you can get snobby about, you know, hand-wired versus PC board all you want, but like my AC30 that I've got, it's a PC board amp, but it sounds great. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that amp.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, amps are one of those things that, like, I played, like I said, I had one amp for a long time, and like, I didn't mention, I do have one other amp. I do have it's one of the newer ones. It's a JC120 Jazz Chorus, but literally I just run keyboard through it. I don't play guitar into it at all. So
yeah, those are pretty fun amps.
Oh yeah. I run my keyboard into it into the return of the effects loop stereo. Okay. So I get real stereo, and and the thing that scared the hell out of me the first time I did it, brain wasn't thinking. The volume on the JC120 is before the effects loop. So when you go directly into the return of the effects loop, you're just wide open.
Yeah.
Turn down.
Turn
the keyboard down. You're gonna kill somebody.
Jeez. Dang, that's a pretty good setup though. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, no, it works. I've started playing keys in this band too, and this is what I take. I play this keyboard into that 120 JC120. It's a killer amp for that. Once again, it's a killer deal, and I don't know if my buddy Anthony listens to this podcast or not, but he sold it to me at a crazy deal. He had the JC120 and one of those reissue, the 90s reissue Ampeg reverb rockets, the 2x12.
Yeah.
And he had bought them. No, don't get me wrong. He had bought them at a crazy deal too. And he just wanted to get rid of them. He wanted space back in his house. He was like, dude, you want both of these amps? I said, well, how much? He's like, $250. I was like, yes. Yeah. Yes, I do. So
that's a solid score.
It is a two. The best part is I already knew somebody that wanted the Ampeg. And so I sold, hey, Kyle, he listens to this podcast. I sold Kyle the Ampeg for $250 because that's a deal for him too. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just passing. So I got the one JC120 for free, essentially. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is I'm at a point now where I just pass on the deals. I'm not good at flipping for money anymore. And I know I said earlier that I feel bad for having so many instruments, but I really shouldn't. I don't really feel bad about having them because for me, part of the joy is in finding the deal and finding the flip. And like, I enjoy that process. Some people hate it. Some people really hate it. I
don't get the patience for it. So kudos to you.
I enjoy it. I really do. There's something fun in the search, and in the bartering and in the trading. I hate when people give in too easy on a trade offer. It's like, haggle with me. Let's work for this a little bit.
I want the challenge.
Right. I want the challenge. But yeah, that's how you end up with too much, more gear and not enough time to play it all though. So, I can relate. Well, I tell you what, that sounds like a great point for us to wrap up the regular episode. Listeners, if you want to hear more conversation with Mike, I'm going to pitch Mike my pedal ideas. I'm just kidding. His are way better than anything I could design, but still. We're going to talk a little more over on our Patreon episode. Remember, if you want to catch extra episodes every week, every week that I put out a regular episode, which is pretty much every week, you can go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. $5 a month is all it'll cost you. Now, if you want to give more than that, you're welcome to. And, there's multiple levels. You'll get some swag. I've got some buttons and stickers I need to mail out. Eventually some t-shirts. But I'm going to pitch this till somebody does it. I have a $50 level where at $50 a month, I will give you lessons. We will do guitar lessons, bass lessons, piano lessons, whatever you want to learn, music theory. If you just want to bullshit for an hour, we're going to do it. Like, it's going to happen. So somebody will eventually take me up on this one. And yes. I'll even announce you as a sponsor of this podcast because you are nice. At that point. But until then, y'all, we're going to sign off. Mike, I really appreciate you. And we're going to continue this conversation over on the Patreon episode. But until next time, y'all be good to each other, be kind to yourself, and try to make some noise.
Yeah.